Hello everyone, Metallic Minty Pony here, and I have a little bit longer before the house is filled and noisy, and I figured I would use this time to read the last bit of Chapter 1 of My Little Mommies that was cut out last time because I realized the video was too long. Let's get right to it. "Girls!" she cried out. Wow, what was wrong with my voice there? "Girls!" she cried out, turning back towards the basement, realizing her 5 friends were still down there. That was Pinkie Pie speaking, by the way. She pointed a huff at the 3 fools. "You 3 stay there!" and charged back down the ramp to the basement, where she felt around for the bodies of her friends and began shaking and yelling at them one by one. "Pinkie, who?" Twilight muttered. "Babies, mirror, light, overslept, hurry!" "Huh? Up, move it! Hey!" After a few minutes of cajoling, I have no idea what that word is. Is that even a word? Pinkie was able to awaken the rest of her friends and direct them upstairs, where under the light from Twilight's horn the 6 ponies came face to face with the trio of fools. They had been moved to a couch conveniently located in the hallway they were in after Rarity had insisted on dusting it off, of course, and were proceeding to finish up what was left of their bottles. Sorry about that. Aside from the fact that all 3 were fillies, the 3 babies were all very different. The first foal was a white-coated unicorn with a blonde tail and mane. What little mane there was, anyway. The second was a pure pink Pegasus, whose little wings constantly flapped involuntarily even as she ate. The third was a purple unicorn, with both a rainbow-colored mane and, interestingly, wings. A combination that was genetically 1 in a million. "Oh, aren't they just precious?" Fluttershy gushed. "They are, but, Pinkie, where did they come from?" Twilight demanded. "I don't know," the pink pony exclaimed. "After all that whole light show downstairs, I woke up and there they were." "They better find their parents soon," Applejack cut in. "They must be awfully worried." "Speaking of worried, it seems like we were incapacitated for quite some time," Rarity added. "I'm sure Spike is terribly concerned." "I could fly to Manhattan and let them know what happened. Maybe tell the guards we lost some foals," Rainbow suggested. "Nice thinking, Rainbow," Applejack nodded. "What do you think, Twi?" "Twi?" Twilight had frozen since Pinkie had spoken, thinking intently. She was now staring straight forward at the 3 foals with a look of horror on her face. "No, it can't be," she mumbled. "What was that, Sugar Cube?" Applejack asked. "A mirror." "What?" Rainbow Dash asked, cocking an eyebrow. "A life mirror! Slip mirror!" Twilight exclaimed. "I'm sorry, dear, but I don't understand," Rarity said with an uncomfortable look on her face. Twilight let out an extremely exasperated sigh. Slipnir, the spider horse, was also known as the father of all monsters because, according to the legend, he created all monsters. He used a series of magical devices he called life mirrors to fuse different creatures together and make entirely new species. Manticores, griffins, cockatrices, and a whole bunch more were all said to be creations of Slipnir. "Wait, so you're saying the mirror downstairs is one of those monster-creating mirrors?" Rainbow Dash asked. "Yes!" Twilight yelled out. "Well, that's fine, Twi, but what does any of that have to do with these Oh, no. Her eyes widened. Applejack's eyes widened as she took a step back. "No." "Exactly," said Twilight in a slightly crazy voice. "There's no need to find their parents. No need for that. We already found them. That's not the problem." She raised a huff and pointed at the 3 foals still sitting on the couch, drinking down the last drops of their bottles. "The problem is, we're their parents." For a moment, the eyes of the other adult ponies in the room went from Twilight to the foals, and then back to Twilight. And then the 6 ponies screamed. Well, that's the end of Chapter 1. I wanted to get the end of it out really quick, even though I missed yesterday. I have a little while left. Why don't I start with the 2nd chapter while I'm at it? Let's wait for my page to load. It takes forever for it to load because it doesn't like it when I have I have a lot of things open right now. I also have the video editor thing open because I need it to record. Do-do-do-do. So, potatoes. Potatoes are good. I like raw potatoes. They're yummy. Oh, wow. I have a lot of unread stories. I'm sorry, I just looked at my favorites thing on FimFiction. Okay. Chapter 2, The Raven. How much longer do I have left? I have about 5 minutes left, I think. She had done it. Applejack had broken the one rule Granny Smith had told her never to break, or she'd be kicked out of the family. She'd gotten pregnant before she was married. Well, okay, she didn't really. Technically, she just inadvertently created a child by way of an ancient artifact. However, the question occupying Applejack's frantically racing mind was whether the distinction was too fine for Granny Smith. Zap Apples had clearly made the elderly mare a bit more familiar with magic than most Earth ponies cared to admit, but asking her to accept that a baby popped out of nowhere because of magic was a bit too much. That's half of the problem. The other half had to do with the identity of the father, or rather, the lack of one. Granny Smith was an old-fashioned pony, and Applejack didn't think she'd be too keen on her great-granddaughter having two mommies. To make matters worse, looking at the three foals, it was surprisingly easy to figure out which apple fell from her tree, and the fact that the blonde filly had a unicorn's horn and a white coat meant that her partner was likely the similarly colored mare freaking out next to her. "Scandal!" Rarity cried out hysterically. "If word of this gets out, the whole high society life will be ruined forever. I'm really sorry." I really messed that up. Give me a second. "Your social life?" Rainbow objected, similarly panicked. "The Wonderbolts do shows all over Equestria. They're constantly on tour. I'll never be able to join them if I have to stay home and change diapers all day." Girls?" came a small voice. "It'll be fine," Twilight said to herself madly, as she looked at the reflection of herself in one of the windows. "The princess will understand." "Oh, well, I'm sorry you won't be able to pursue your hobbies, Rainbow Dash," Rarity snapped back. "I, on the other hand, depend on my reputation for business." There you had it then. Even if Granny Smith didn't throw her out on her orange rump, Applejack was going to be raising a foal all on her own. Tears began to well in her eyes. "Hobby? You think the Wonderbolts work for free? You can ask any ticket stubs any time, Missy. They do not." "Girls?" the voice whispered again. "They'll all understand." "Oh, but what if they don't?" Twilight panicked. "What if the princess pulls me from my friendship studies and gives me a job in magic daycare?" Another mouth to feed in their already poor family, and no one to help her out. "I don't know what we're yelling about!" Pinkie screamed. "Girls!" Fluttershy called at the top of her lungs, blasting her stare full of power at her 5 friends. Applejack snapped out of her catatonic state and met Fluttershy's gaze. Twilight stopped arguing with herself. Rarity and Rainbow stopped snapping at each other, and Pinkie stopped bouncing around the room aimlessly. At that, every pony became aware of another noise in the room. "Please, girls, you're upsetting them," Fluttershy said, gesturing towards the 3 foals, who were now gushing tears and screaming at the top of their lungs. "Listen, I know you're scared right now. I am too," Fluttershy said as she floated over to the fluffy pink foal and scooped her up in her forelegs. "But right now, these foals need us. They're the ones that we need to be worrying about." The ponies looked at the babies crying their eyes out, and for a moment something instinctual took over. All the worries, all the problems that lay ahead of them seemed to fade away for the moment. "Aw, shoot. I'm sorry, little ones," Applejack said, walking forward and scooping up the foal she guessed was her own. "I got lost in my thoughts. Your mommies are here. All of them." After a moment's hesitation, what would that even mean? Hesitation. Like a garden hedge? A garden hedge hesitated? After a moment's hesitation, Twilight approached the remaining filly, levitated her into the air, and began to gently rock her. "Well, guess who accidentally turned her mic off?" "Yep, me. I have a few minutes left. I think I'm going to continue reading from where I was. It took me a little while. I read ahead before I realized that I accidentally turned my mic off. Okay, after a moment's hesitation, Twilight approached the remaining filly, levitated her into the air, and began to gently rock her. There, she said. Stop crying. Everything's going to be okay. Meanwhile, Pinkie and Rainbow began showing the foals their entire repertoire of ridiculous faces. Applejack lifted the blonde filly over her shoulder and began patting her back. Rarity stood a few feet away, fidgeting in uncertainty. After a few moments, she took a deep breath, stepped forward, and patted the filly on the head. There, she said. Applejack snorted. I'm not used to this, Rarity pouted, her cheeks turning red. She looked over at the other two groups. Rainbow was waggling her tongue out at the purple filly held up by Twilight's levitation, while Pinkie was softly singing some sort of impromptu song to the pink filly held by Fluttershy. She looked back at the filly, crying on the back of Applejack's shoulder. This is ours, isn't it? She asked. Yep, I reckon so. At that moment, the foal let out a rather large burp. Definitely yours, Rarity added. Applejack chuckled. I think every pony's figured out who goes with who, Rarity said, looking over at the other two groups. They don't seem to be bothered by it. Applejack nodded, sorry. Pinkie was Fluttershy's first friend in Ponyville, Applejack recalled. They've known each other for a pretty long time. And Rainbow and Twilight have been spending an awful lot of time together since Rainbow got into reading, Rarity added. I think the only pair here that ever had any trouble getting along was the two of us, Applejack finished. There was a long silence between them, and then Rarity spoke. Applejack, I just don't know if I... Rarity, Applejack gently interrupted. Fluttershy's right. There's a lot to worry about. We can take our time to figure things out later. One thing at a time. Applejack stepped forward towards Rarity, the foal still crying over her shoulder. But I promise you, we'll find a way to make this all work out. Rarity sniffled. Pinkie promise? She asked with the slightest hint of a smile. Sure, Applejack answered with a smile of her own, miming with her free hoof the act of sticking a cupcake in her eye. Pinkie promise. And there's a cutscene, so I think that's the perfect place to end it off. Sorry I got so tongue-tied in this. If you want more, don't hesitate. That's gonna be my new word. Don't hesitate to subscribe. Like if you enjoyed, and I'll put out another episode soon. My name is Metallic Minty Pony, and I will see you all later. Goodbye.